Coming up on today's show, Steph Zapata is a well-seasoned, nationally recognized, award-winning NuyoRican sexuality educator and space creator. They have become a long-term catalyst for change within sexuality education through their radically intentional approaches that call out systems of oppression and call in individuals and community to disrupt and reimagine what can be. The work focuses on collective liberation tactics through innovative and honest sex ed that creates space for the whole self and the whole truth. Welcome to Loving Without Boundaries, where we hear inspiring stories, share actionable advice, and talk about the challenges and the joys of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. I'm your host, Kitty Shambliss. Coming up, my conversation with Steph Zapata. Welcome back to Loving Without Boundaries, where I am really, truly excited to be here with Steph Zapata, who was made through an introduction of a mutual colleague of ours. And I'm really thrilled to be having this conversation with you today and to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks, Kitty. I'm happy to be here.
Good, good. And I'd love it if you could just introduce yourself to our listeners in your own words so that they can learn a little bit more about you outside of your bio, or if you want to make it even more succinct, however you'd like to share.
Yeah. So my name is Steph. I use they and she pronouns. I'm a creative, queer, Boricua, so that is Puerto Rican, sex educator in New York. I am poly, and I integrate that into like all aspects of my life, which is incredible, right? Like somebody can ask me, do you have a favorite color? And I'm like, well, actually, I'm poly about my colors too. So that's really fun. And yeah, I'm just really happy to talk about all things relationships, all things love, and how do we make a really authentic experience for ourselves and for our partners and our lovers.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm really thrilled to dive in deeper on that topic and get to know you and know a little bit more about your journey. So I love to ask this question because I've rarely gotten the same answer, even close to the same answer twice. So was there either a moment in your life or possibly a series of moments when you realized that maybe you were cut from a different cloth? Like maybe you were going to be a little bit different than some of the other kids in terms of coloring outside of the lines of heteronormative monogamy. Does anything come to mind?
Oh yeah. I used to get in lots of trouble with my girlfriends because apparently certain things should only be reserved for romantic relationships, and I did not structure my friendships in that way, right? So we would flirt, we would hold hands, we would compliment each other, and that was a big no-no in monogamy. And that's really where I started to think, well, I don't want to limit how I love on the people that I'm in, relation and connection with. So what else is there outside of this thing that I've kind of been conditioned to create a relationship in monogamy? What else is there? And that's what led.
Mm-hmm. And was that like when you were like a younger kid, or was that later in high school? Like how long ago was that?
This was like, so right now I'm 34. I want to say I was like 25, 26.
Okay.
At least when I made the realization, right? Like the history of getting yelled at basically by partners, that was my entire life. So since I was a kid, school girl crushes, my first girlfriend, it was always the reoccurring thing. Why are you so nice to her? Why do you like giving her a kiss on the cheek? And I just kind of fawned into it and said, okay, well, I'll try to stop this. But really in my mid to late 20s is where I said, but this is what feels good, right? Like what feels authentic. And so that's when I finally got to the place of, there has to be more, right? Like there has to be something else out there other than this one model.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that's maybe when you discovered your either queer identity, or maybe you eventually discovered the word polyamory, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So my queer identity is something that I've always known since I was a child. And that has gone through lots of ebbs and flows with internalized homophobia, right? And oh no, I don't want to be that kind of queer person. So that's been with me since I was a kid. But in terms of the language around poly, absolutely. This was mid to late 20s where I was like, whoa, this is like Jasmine and Aladdin, a whole new world, right?
Yeah. And that is a similar moment, I think, that we can talk about is like especially because it is a newer word. You know, I was born in 1969. I'm certainly older than you. So literally the word didn't exist when I was a little kid. And so I didn't learn the word until somebody recommended that I read The Ethical Slut. And I read the introduction and I was like, whoa, my mind is blown. Amazing. You know, and I often will say, like, at first I was joyous and was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So there's nothing wrong with me. I always thought there was something wrong with me. But at the same time, I was kind of ticked off because I was like, why didn't anyone ever tell me about this before? How did I have to just kind of stumble upon this? And have to suffer all those years because I was in my late 30s. So I'm curious, where did you first learn the word polyamory or the concept of it?
So it was actually my best friend. I have a wonderful best friend who has been practicing poly all of their life. And so as our friendship developed, they were the one who really spoke to me about the existence of poly and the different types of structures. So they were the one who opened my eyes. I would really just complain to them and be like, I'm so sad. I can't like talk to people and flirt with people. And they were like, hey, have you ever heard of poly? Like, do you know this thing? And I had the same experience where I was just like, why did it take so long and so much heartbreak to get to this of knowing that this is a possibility, right? And for me, there was a lot of internalized shame too, because, full disclosure, I had cheated on lots of partners. And that was a really big turning point for me because my father used to do the same thing. And I was really upset with my father. And I said, why didn't he just be poly? And then I said, well, probably because he also didn't have anybody saying, hey, do you know this thing exists?
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And full disclosure, because you may not know my background, I joke around, I'm a recovering Catholic. So, internalized guilt and shame just goes along with that. Yep. But also I didn't start really dating until college, and I cheated on every single partner I ever had for about the first 12 or 14 years, just because I didn't know any other way to get my needs met. And again, I didn't understand that there was this thing called polyamory or even open relationships, partly because of that Catholic upbringing. Like, you have one way that you're allowed to be in relationships. That's it. Heteronormative monogamy, So yeah, I internalized a lot of that guilt and shame as well. So I can definitely empathize with that and appreciate that. So once you had this kind of epiphany, what were maybe some of the things that were fantastic about that, but also some of the struggles that maybe, or the challenges that maybe came up around that time?
I was like a freaking kid in a candy store. And so the really great part was that freedom that you feel knowing anyone you interact with, you have the freedom and the expansiveness to connect with them if you want to, right? So that piece was really great, knowing that I didn't have to feel bad that I was hurting anyone or like cheating on someone. That piece felt so good. The not so great piece that I came to learn later is that you actually have to know what you're doing, right? Like you have to be intentional about managing multiple relationships and multiple connections. And so there was a part of me in the beginning that was like, yeah, I'm just going to I was like Ash Ketchum, right? I just wanted to collect them all. I was like, yes, give me all these partners. And that left lots of folks, including myself, feeling depleted, right? Like our needs weren't being met because it was just kind of superficial thing where I was, again, a kid in a candy shop. I just want all the sweets. Give me everything. Not paying attention to what my partners actually needed from me, what I needed from them. And so that was a really big learning curve, right? Going from one monogamous relationship, and then I kid you not, Kitty, I immediately went to 4 relationships.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you really did jump in.
I'm not bullshitting you.
Yeah. That's a time management nightmare, depending on what else you had going on. Yeah.
It was rough. It was such a rough learning curve. But I really, ultimately, I'm so grateful for it because that is what has helped me to now understand, right? Like the inner workings of relationships, my needs, their needs, and how to come to that like authentic co-creative space.
That's really amazing and awesome. So how did this translate into the work that you're passionate about now? Tell me a little bit more about how that kind of wove into each other.
The universe just loves me. I mean, it really is, right? Like, yes, professionally, I am a sex educator. and I tell everybody this, and I think sometimes people just say, like, oh, you're just talking shit, but I'm not talking shit, right? Like I operate not from a professionalism space, but this is personal to me. Like this is deeply personal to me. And one of the biggest reasons is because doing sex education in like the traditional model that is solely based on prevention, what I learned is that I was perpetuating the exact same thing. So I was telling young people, you have to be monogamous. You can only have one person, only do it if you're in love. And that doesn't feel good, right? Because at a certain point, I'm taking jabs at myself. And so I created my own consulting agency. So now I work for myself. And that is really where I've been able to kind of expand sex education as like, hey, yes, we care about safety, but guess what? You can be safe with 4 partners. You can be safe with 20 partners. You could be at a group goddamn play party and orgy and be so safe, right? So it's finding that balance of, if you want to be with one person, sure, but you don't have to be. So again, offering young people what I didn't have, which is that language and the ability to think of relationships for themselves. Like, what do you actually want? What capacity do you have to even engage in this relationship? I never got any of those talks, like none of it. So to offer that now is, it's a really incredible experience.
I really hear you. I've been doing this work for about 12 years, just really ramping up to where I am now. And at one point I started to get on, stages and talks and things like that. And to this day, my favorite talk that I've ever done was to the LGBTQ plus community at the University of North Florida. And I gave a 3-hour workshop with an intermission in the middle. And at that intermission, some of the kids came up to me. And, I was maybe 45 years old at the time. And they just said, wow, like with tears in their eyes, like, thank you so much. I always thought there was something wrong with me and you gave me permission to be myself. And I started the talk out just saying, this is the talk that I wish somebody had given me in college, so that's so rewarding. So I can definitely appreciate, you're in that boat too. So tell me a little bit more about your work. Do you go around and speak at different events, or are you more doing like workshops? What is your work?
I do everything. So like I said, I'm poly in all things, right?
Yes, that's right. You did say that.
So I don't define my sex education in one singular capacity. So yes, I do lots of trainings. I do things with adults, right? So how to get them to have more inclusive curriculum and safer spaces, all of those great things. I do the workshops with young people, similar, right? Like, you can create your own things. It's possible. There's nothing wrong with you. And I also do lots of really fun pleasure-based stuff. So like dirty talk workshops, spanking, impact, blogging, like all of the things. I do a little bit of everything.
Thank you for sharing all that. And thank you for the work that you do. We definitely can't have enough sex positive educators out there who are really open to, just like you said, living your most authentic life. And this is a neat question I'll ask. Like, what would you say living an authentic life means to you, or how would you define it?
I would define it truthfully. And it's the simplest thing, but I define it by doing the things that I want to do when I want to do them. And I know you're going to have listeners, and I also know this too. That is a very privileged thing to say, right? Like, not many of us have the opportunity to really do what we want when we want. And I still believe that that is really what authenticity is about, right? So much of life, particularly around labor, is based in capitalism, which is based in productivity, which is based in performance. You're doing things for other people because of other people. Very rarely do we get the opportunity to ask ourselves, well, what do I really want to do? How do I actually feel about this? And for me, that is really, those are the questions that have helped me to live. I mean, I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I'm also the most authentic I've ever been. So I think there's something to be said there around questioning what's possible. And then when you get to this place of, no, that's not possible for me, ask yourself, why not? Because there's some in there somewhere. There's some lies and some misinformation, my love, because I promise there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with wanting more for yourself. It's possible.
I think that's a beautiful question to have around authenticity, is asking that question, why is this not possible? And is that really true? Because maybe there's some BS there that you need some help, whether again with an educator or a coach or somebody to help kind of figure out what's blocking you.
Yep.
Yeah, totally hear that. What would you say in terms of living, maybe your discovery of living your most authentic self? Was there any like big challenges that you encountered that you want to share here, and in terms of also how you maybe navigated through any of that?
Yeah. So I like to identify as a hoe.
I love that. That's hilarious.
I am who I am. I like what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And historically, I've been really okay with that language and behind closed doors, or maybe even on screens. And then the pandemic hit, so I was like, I have nothing to worry about. I'm good. I have to stay indoors anyway. But then it was over, right? Because it's not really.
Mm.
And I start going out, and I'm going into play spaces, and I'm going into conferences where there is this real invitation to be authentically you. So I'm like, how do I can't be a hoe in public, like in real life, in real space. There's no way I can do this. And all of that was just the same thing, right? It's the same thing, but why not me? Why isn't it possible for me? What is holding me back?
Mm-hmm.
Much of it was just shame. For me in particular, I think everyone's story is different.
Mm-hmm.
For me, going back to the Catholic guilt that you mentioned, right? Like,
yes,
lots of it. I got loads of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that fear of being judged and deemed like unworthy or like dirty, right? Like that, I was terrified to authentically embrace that. Yes, I do enjoy sex. Yes, I do enjoy multiple partners. Because what would people say? What will they think about me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think just, again, asking yourself the questions, and you meet wonderful people like you, right? Like you go to these spaces and you see, oh, look, other people are doing it too. So it is possible. And you just kind of little by little, you get in there, and now I'm doing workshops to like 400 people on how to talk dirty.
That's awesome. Is that one of your favorite workshops to do?
Absolutely. Because it's so vulnerable and people don't think that it is. And I'm like, hi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know I have a Kindle book on something like that I've not read yet, but would you be willing to like maybe share some of the quan of like, or some tidbits from that talk?
Yeah. So it usually starts out with, how are you feeling about it? And typically most people are like, I really want to do this, but I'm terrified because I'm not good at it. Mm-hmm. So the question they ask most often is, how do I get really good and confident at this? I don't do anything to be confident at it, right? Like that is the last thing in my mind. And so that's what I offer to folks as well. Think less about confidence and think more about vulnerability and playfulness. This is just a communication. So for me, we use like lots of Mad Libs.
Uh-huh.
There's one example that's like, read the following statement. My foot is wet. Okay. And you know what we're going to say next, right? Like,
right.
So we take out foot. Okay. My pussy is wet. And so we just phonetically go through this exercise together, really moving even in our body, the fear and the shame and the activation. We get the sillies out, but like, that's what it's about, right? In the same way that any skill is all about familiarity. It's all about practice. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being the most confident. I've been doing this for like 12 years and I'm still not the most confident. Like, it's just not a thing, And so I think the more personally I've seen that, the more I offer that vulnerability to people, they respond, in kind, right? Like they meet me exactly there and they offer such beautiful feedback. Like, I never thought I would be able to do this. And you helped me to feel comfortable. And you're a stranger. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that just means a lot to me.
That's amazing. And that is such a cool workshop idea. And what are some of your other talks about?
Depends what category we're talking about. So that's what I call pleasure-based sex education. So pleasure-based, I do dirty talk. I do body mapping. So how do we figure out what feels good and where? We do different exercises if we're using ice or candles or bites or kisses, little feathers. Mm-hmm. And then I do workshops on how to do spanking and impact play for bottoms. Historically, people just want to like smack. Oh yeah. But like, no, let us build up. Let us understand what our partner is feeling, what they need, what we need as well, right? Like as the tops. But I think most of my approach in any type of work is really about bringing that vulnerable piece, that fully human piece. Like, I'm not just here to perform. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to do something with you, right, Kitty? Like, I'm here to have a conversation with you. I'm here to get to know you. And it doesn't matter what topic it is. I think that approach opens the door for folks to just feel so welcome. Like, oh, nothing's wrong with me. Okay. Nothing's wrong with me. This person's an expert and they're nervous too. Nothing's wrong with me. Okay. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say what I'm really picking up from what you're sharing is just that deep releasing of shame and that unworthiness and that self-acceptance layered on top of that, being an example for other people so that then they have permission to do the same thing, to release their own shame and guilt and anything and just truly accept themselves and step into that place of self-love. Yeah. That's what I'm getting from
incredible because I never thought that was a thing. Like I didn't set the intention to do that. I really just wanted, again, to be authentically me. And what that meant is that I was going to be vulnerable about my feelings and my inner critic and the shame and all of that stuff. I had no idea that so many people would then be like, me too, me too, me too, me too, Mm-hmm. So it just, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So, what are some of the things that you're passionate about right now? Do you have anything that you want to talk about that's coming up that you're super excited about?
Yeah. So, I am awesome. I'm just going to say that.
I clearly see that. Yes.
Awesome. And I say that in an example of like, you could all do it too, right? So not only do I have my own business, but I also created my own virtual sex education conference. And that is almost unheard of in the sex ed, right? Because it's typically these big name places, that have the corners, let's say the corners of conferences. But I created a virtual conference that centers BIPOC communities, so Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, as a way to really shine light on, I think, our lived experience and our history, particularly in this country. We have been exploited and manipulated and harmed under the guise of reproductive health and sexual health. And so to me, it made the most sense to let us tell our stories on our own stage. And so now that is a really big, wonderful, successful conference and community that I've built.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible! Yeah. You're like a powerhouse.
Yeah, that word has been used before.
And is this an annual virtual conference, or how often is it?
So it's every year. We started in 2020, so during the pandemic. Most of us lost all of the opportunities we had to go to conferences because of the pandemic, and I just figured, why not me, right? It's the same question that I said in the beginning. Me, why not just try it? So I tried it. And so now we're on every year. And we're one of few conferences that actually pays their educators. Surprise, surprise. Most conference bases do not pay the participants. And this year we'll be going on April 29th. So if folks want to check us out, please do. Happy to send you a little discount code too.
Oh, that would be amazing. April 29th, you said?
Yeah, April 29th.
And what's that?
It's all virtual. And so we're operating in the Eastern time zone, right? Because I'm in New York, but attendees get replay access for 2 weeks. So you can literally take your sweet time moving through the material, right? Like again, detaching ourselves from the sense of urgency and perfection. Now you have like 2 or 3 weeks to go through the recordings when you want to.
And is it over the course of about 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, it's 2 days. Yeah.
Awesome. And roughly how many different speakers?
Ooh, we have 9.
Nice. So that's incredible.
And during our lunch break, we have a play therapist who's going to come in. And so if you don't feel like going out to eat, you have a virtual play therapist on screen with you, just helping you to get to your creative side. Not to do like a work thing, but just to actually be a creative, playful kid again. That's it.
Wow, that's amazing. And so this is year 4 then? Have you been doing it consistently since?
Yeah, my baby's 4 years old. Yeah.
Congratulations. That is so awesome.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I'd love to have that link so that we can share it with our Love Without Boundaries community. That would be amazing. Is there anything that maybe I haven't asked you that you'd love to talk about or share?
I just always want folks to define their lives for themselves, and that is across the board. I talk a lot about labor and capitalism because it really is an oppressive system, right? Like it is really harmful, but in other ways too, right? Like what does a relationship mean to you? What does that look like? What is joy? What does healthy look like and feel like to you? What actually makes you happy? right? These are questions that we don't ask ourselves, and therefore we're not able to ask those that are younger than us either, right? We can't offer folks what we don't have ourselves. So what I want to offer folks is to really think critically about your life. Think critically about your joy. What brings it to you? What stops it? What impacts it? How do you invite more of it in? That's what I want to offer folks. It's your life. Get off of autopilot and just start living for you.
Beautiful message. I really, really love that. So I'd love to take you into what I call the lightning round, where I'll just ask a few short questions, and then we'll start to wrap it up and just let people know where they can find you. So my first question is, what would you say is either the best advice you've ever received, or maybe in retrospect, the best thing that you've ever done along your journey to live your most authentic life?
The best advice that I've ever received is that nothing has to be big in scale or size to have a big impact. Nothing. You don't have to do things on this larger than life scale and say, oh, I did it. You can do the smallest thing and still celebrate yourself and say, yeah, I did it. I did that.
Awesome. I love that. And how about maybe somebody is either dipping their toe into opening up a relationship or being polyamorous, whether they're in a relationship or not. What would maybe be a piece of advice that you would give them if they're right at the beginning of that journey?
Oh, my love. Congrats. First of all, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. We're so happy to have you here. My advice would be to sit with yourself, to understand yourself. And that includes these shadow aspects, as a lot of folks like to call it. So that for me, again, it was jealousy and insecurity, right? We want to talk to those parts of ourselves, not with harm, not with judgment, but with love. I want to get to know you. Right? Because those are the things that so often as we open up our relationships are going to come up. Your partners are going to have other partners. I'm going to have other partners. If jealousy and insecurity drive me to attack or to shut down, my relationships are not going to be successful. And so really take the time in getting to understand yourself, your potential triggers, places that you might need a little bit more love, right? Like, hey, I'm feeling insecure that you're going out with this person. Can we set up like aftercare, right? Can we do that? That's
Beautiful. Beautiful. And then is there a book or a resource or a movie or anything that you can recommend for other folks to look into that maybe helped you along your journey?
With respect to poly, no, I think that I would be lying if I said that there was one book. I did read The Ethical Slut in my mid to late 20s when I was first like, oh my goodness, what is this? I don't think that I would say it was such an impactful book that I think everybody should read it. Truthfully, most of this was just meditation and prayer and journaling, and therapy. That's what it was. Less books, more therapy.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's also what worked for you. That's great. Good. And then lastly, for fun, is there a particular song or music that really moves you or makes you want to dance?
Oh yeah, it's reggaeton. It is reggaeton. So if anybody ever wants to see me being a hoe, please just check out my Instagram, because that's pretty much all it is. I'm very careful about not using Instagram as I'm a serious professional sex educator, but you will see me dancing in underwear to reggaeton.
That's awesome. What a great teaser.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I've really, really enjoyed the conversation here. And where can people find you and your work if they want to reach out and say hello?
Please say hello. Yeah. So you can check me out online. My website is stephaniespeakshere.com. If you are interested in watching me do some hoey things, then that would be Instagram. And on Instagram, it's Rise, the letter W, and Steph. So Rise with Steph.
I love that. That's a great handle. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your clearly busy schedule. Thank you for all the work that you're doing for the community. I'm thrilled about your virtual sex ed conference. Congratulations on 4 years running with that. So I hope it keeps going. And I'm excited to share that with our listeners. So just really appreciate you and your work.
Well, thank you, Kitty. This was a really fun conversation. This was really
good.
Nice. Nothing you feel like play. This was play. So thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard, are struggling with some aspect of your relationships, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit to work with me as your relationship coach, here's what I invite you to do next. Head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, and book a call to speak with me. I'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes, and we'll get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, exactly what's not working well in your relationships right now. Number 2, ideally where you'd like to be and what might be getting in the way. And number 3, the exact strategy to get you there, helping to close that gap. Remember, creating healthy, open relationships does not typically happen by itself. Many often need expert guidance to make it happen. We've helped clients all over the world to feel safe, happy, and secure in open relationships, while not losing their mind or their cherished partners. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. I'm Kitty Chambliss, and let's talk soon.